I had another idea for today's show.
Okay.
Back to this idea of some of us feeling distant, or some of us feeling others are being distant. So one of the things was just doing a little round table and just kind of checking in. Like, what are you excited about? Is there something cool coming up in your life? Anything that you're excited about?
Nothing.
And then are there any things that you're just learning or you're practicing? Like golf, for instance. Any... I feel like we just get so butthurt. Like when we find out that someone else is doing something without us, it's like, oh, he's playing golf? Like, I didn't know that.
No, the first question, no.
You're so distant.
No, hold on.
You have a hobby that I don't know about?
Listen.
You've been
You have
so
a life?
distant.
Do you have kids?
Let me reenact this. So we were just talking, and I forgot how we were talking about something, and I was like, oh, you know that Justin has a new hobby. We're waiting for you. You didn't come yet, and he started playing golf again, without Eric. I mean, Eric was surprised. Like, oh, golf? But the first thing he said was, with who? Remember? Like, with who? I'm like, I don't think he's really doing with who yet. But
Like, if it isn't with us, then who could it be?
with who?
Right. No, and we're not interested in playing golf. We just don't want you to do anything that we're not doing.
Like, you have zero interest in golf. It's just the fact that I'm doing something without you guys.
But I feel like that's such a typical male thing to have, right? It's the sort of ownership almost, whether it's friendship or relationship.
Is it?
Yeah.
I would disagree. I don't think that's a male thing. I think the stereotypical male thing is like, you know, like men have like their boundaries, and they have some sort of like, you know, they usually have some sort of wall up with their
That's you.
real emotions with, you know, a lot of their friends. Like, they're not going to get jealous. They don't get jealous of each other for like doing other things.
They
I
won't
don't think
admit
that's a
it.
male
They
trait.
won't admit getting jealous.
So I want to.
Well, I think it's just because we're all so insecure. And I don't know if everyone has the same level of insecurities we have.
Most people don't.
About our friendship, you know? Maybe not about other things. I think we're a little insecure about our friendship because we've all been through some rocky times together.
Our worst fear is I come here and Howie's like, oh yeah, Justin's like, he'll be a little bit late. He's finishing up his other show.
Eric will literally cry. What? So before we get into the show, I wanted to play you guys something. So there's been some pretty big advancements in AI music.
You got to bring AI. Why? Why is it every time you got to bring AI? No, like, I don't think any of our listeners really are.
It's not about the listener. Then cut it out. Then don't put it in the show. But it's fun. Listen, check it out.
Okay.
What we got here? What is this?
From USA to Shanghai, we took the lead. Talking deep as the city sleeps. Sipping drinks, spilling truths we found in the neon lights.
It's like Donna Summers kind of stuff.
Raise your glass, let's make a toast to
Did you tell AI to make a song about the honest drink?
Yeah.
honest word.
I didn't write the lyrics. Nothing.
With the mic in hand, here we stand.
So I didn't do anything. All I prompted was there's a podcast called The Honest Drink, and from basically the bio, and that's it. And then I asked it to come up with a song that's more poppy soul.
But that's like very Donna Summers kind of,
very
right?
much. Yeah,
Here's another one I just did too.
it's disco.
Yeah, disco, exactly.
Jump from America to Shanghai, lights up when we ride, late night deep talks, city never hides, sip that truth, we spill what's real.
Should we use one of these songs as the new intro song for the podcast?
Can.
I've been thinking about updating that intro song.
Why?
I don't know. Yeah, we've used it for so long already.
This is kind of like Jay-Z, right? A little bit. It's a little Jay-Z-ish.
It's kind of. Come on, the quality is pretty up there.
So what?
It's interesting.
What app did you use?
This one was done by Udio.
Okay, so here are my thoughts on this.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, I feel like anytime I try to like push back a little bit on AI, the argument is, oh, you don't think this is a powerful tool? Like, I think it's every bit as powerful as what you're saying, as what experts have been saying, everything, right? It's every bit as big of a game changer as it's hyped to be. I believe that. But I also think there is a little bit of us, the general us, overestimating the complexity and difficulty of how the human mind works or thinks in a way. Take creative stuff like a song. It's basically poetry, and you can break it down into like a rhyme pattern. And that pattern is not that difficult of a thing. And we've talked about this before. Our minds actually work very pattern oriented. It's very algorithmic in that way in terms of how we put things together. And in our minds, we think it's this super complicated thing. It's the spirit of creativity. But when you actually look at the work, okay, without the actual process of how it's made, just look at the results of the work, it's very structured in that way. And it's not that complicated and hard. So that's where I temper a little bit my excitement for this stuff. It's awesome. It's cool. Yes, everything. But it's also a little bit let's not overestimate how difficult it is to mimic what us humans can do. In some respects, it's very hard. But I think in a basic song pattern, it's not that hard. It's basically a poem.
Well, there is a conversation about what is creativity, and that always has been, I guess, one stance for people who discount AI, saying that creativity is a human element that will not be replicated, that AI is not going to be able to take over. It's that special sauce that makes us human, et cetera, et cetera. But through research, they realized that creativity is also formulaic, just like you said. And everything is a formula. And that's what they're realizing about the brain. Everything's a formula. Even emotions are formulaic. And so, for example, what cause and effect, right? These are formulas. And so they're all, the only thing that is, at least in its current form right now, the most missing element to make AI that AGI, whatever that we keep talking about, is compute power. It's just that our minds are so powerful, the brain is so powerful in terms of computational speed and processing and diversity, that it's still not replicable.
Oh, okay, so I'm curious. Here's the thought experiment. So imagine you had all of these AIs around, almost like for each human being, there was an AI, whatever. There was another AI entity. So could an AI come up with something interesting and new, and then all of the other AIs, as if they were humans, decided whether they liked it or not, and then it became a trend? Because that's what happens with creativity from a human perspective, because tons of people put stuff out there, and no one can predict what's actually going to take off. And then something goes viral, and then people end up, actually throw out all human beings. If you had a bunch of billions of AIs, could one AI come up with something, and then all the other AIs oh, that's cool, or that's shit, and then do that? Until it can do that, it's not.
I agree, because even now, what I just told you about these songs, I had to prompt it, right? Mm-hmm. I had to tell it what kind of genre of music that I'm looking for. Obviously, because it's a service to me. I want a certain type of song, so I need to tell it a certain genre of music, a certain period, time period, and it'll pop out something very accurate.
Yeah, I mean, all that shit is crazy, and who knows, right? I think what we've already echoed is, you're right. I think human creativity is very formulaic in nature, and let's not get too carried away sometimes. And obviously, there's levels to creativity. I think there's definitely some human creativity that I don't think any AI can touch yet, right? But writing a song, I mean, I love songs. We love music. This has been clear, if you've been listening to this podcast, how much appreciation and respect we have music. But honestly, for a software to write a song is not that hard of a thing. It's one of the most formulaic things you can do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just saying, let's not get too carried away with that kind of stuff.
To me, this is just for fun.
Yeah, I know.
I also did remixes of old Bastion songs and stuff like that to see what.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and it was amazing. I was like, holy shit!
Did they come out better than the original Bastion songs?
10 times better.
By the way, Bastion is your old band for people who don't know.
Band. So I literally put my old lyrics in, and gave it a certain genre that's similar to my old band, and I'm like, okay, that's why we failed. That's fine. But But anyway,
Wait, I want to get back to this idea of when I walked in, because I came in late today.
yeah.
You guys thought I was being I've been distant. Like I don't like that's to me that's coming out of left field. Like I don't like where does that come from? Because I don't feel like my behavior has been any different than its own.
That's what I told Howie.
Yeah.
Not to distance myself from the distant comment, but he said it, and I was like, "But hasn't he always been like that?"
Yeah. So for me, I think I'm just more hypersensitive to like minute details of change in behavior, but maybe it's not necessarily a change in behavior, but maybe it's an elevation of behavior. So what I mean by that is recently I've been noticing Justin, who always is slow to respond to WeChat messages.
What is slow?
Sometimes days, sometimes never.
See you never.
Yeah, and so yeah, I already know that there is that standard that's already been established, but he's always responding when you have a specific, more specific questions or more specific conversational messages. He'll respond quicker to that. But then recently, it was a couple of messages. The only thing that stood out was the one of the dream. But there's a couple other times that I noticed in my mind. I'm like, why is he not responding to that? That there were messages sent, and it would just be.
When I'd be lying if for that example, I'd be lying if I told you like I don't get it at all. I get it with that, like because you wrote me this whole thing about your dream,
A novel.
Yeah, you were sending like multiple lengthy texts, and like I responded with like one word answers, right?
No, you responded in the beginning, and then that was it.
Yeah,
and then I wrote my novel, and that was it.
Well, one I told you why because I was busy, and you know.
So let me. Okay, so this is what happened. So I one day, a couple of days ago, I woke up. I had this dream that Justin and I opened up this restaurant. And it was so vivid because you know when you have dreams, you kind of get the idea what's going on, but you can't really pick out the details. But this dream, I could pick out the details, the conversations, the specific people I interacted with. It was crystal clear. And so I texted Justin. I'm like, "Oh shit, it happened." I was joking around with him. I was like, "What?" And I'm like, "We opened a restaurant," and then he responded. He's like, "Oh yeah," or something like that. And then I started writing. I was like, yeah, so basically this is what happened. And I wrote this like really lengthy dream. What happened in the dream between the dishes that were served,
What
the
kind of
conversation.
dishes?
Well, the one particular dish that stood out to me was called a closed burger. I don't even know what the fuck that is. But it was basically, it's a burger, but it's closed off like a manto, But
How crazy would it be if I told you like I've been thinking about this concept of the closed
Yeah,
burger
I know, right?
and I never told you about it?
Right?
Oh,
That'd be freaky.
that is a pretty interesting idea. It's like a Bald's burger.
yeah, something like that. But it looks like a burger, but closed.
Because
you know?
one of the problems with burgers is they fall apart.
Exactly. Oh, exactly.
See, so this is
But is that really a problem though?
it is.
And then once you bite in, like everything just explodes out. And anyway, so it looked beautiful. It was like a very beautiful closed burger. That's the only thing I can call it. And there's like this other pasta dish that looked really good. And what happened was it was just opening friends and family. And there was this Indian guy that came in, and he was somebody that I don't recognize, but he felt like it was an investor or some sort of person, consultant or something. And be like, check out a closed burger. It's really delicious. Da, da, da. Justin put a lot of effort in this one. And
it's like a burger version of like a calzone.
or something like that, right? So, but that's not the point. Okay, the point is
He's still stuck on
He took a bite of it.
I'm hungry.
and he took a bite of it. And he's like, okay, but he didn't say good or bad. I'm like, okay. I was expecting like, oh my god, it's delicious, right? And then he took a bite of something else, and then so I was like, so what do you think? What do you think about this concept? And he looked at me. He was like, it's all right. I'm like, what do you mean it's all right? He's like, the food's all right. I mean, the decor's all right. Everything's all right. I mean, if that's what you want, then you've succeeded. And I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? He's like, if that's your goal, is to create an all right restaurant, congratulations. You've made an all right restaurant. But is that what you want? And I said, I never thought of it that way. And he goes, this is not a top 15 restaurant. And for some reason, in my mind, I understood what he meant. Even though top 15, like, what was that?
Right,
what's
arbitrary.
What's top 15, right? So he's like, this is not a top 15 restaurant. I'm like, okay, you don't think so? He's like, no, this is definitely not a top 15 restaurant. If you're not making a top 15 restaurant, then why the fuck are you opening a restaurant? I'm like, oh shit. And it was just weird because when I woke up, what I immediately did was started brainstorming about how to make a top 15 restaurant. And I was just, for some reason, I was just really in it because I think in that dream, I was in that mode. I was the bear kind of guy, you know, like I was in that
Yeah,
mode.
you're
So when
trying
I
to do something.
Yeah, so when I woke up, I was still in that mode. I was like, okay, yeah, I gotta think about this. But to finish the story, so then I text Justin what I just said. So which is
He
like
didn't even read it. Like, Justin's
literally-
hearing this for the first time. now.
literally, I text this.
He's like, that's what that fucking message
Yeah.
was about?
I text this whole story. You can see, like, if I had to cut and like screenshot the message, I have to do multiple pages, right?
It was long.
And then,
Why didn't you just voice message it?
well, I was just in the moment, so I was just typing, and I was
Right?
just-
Inefficient. Like, this guy's talking about AI all the time, and he's like so backwards.
yeah. So anyway, this motherfucker doesn't respond. 0.
Because he's like, you don't have what it takes.
Not even like a haha, or you know, like the generic like haha, LOL.
Well, I think a non-response would have been better than I thought I would think a haha would be even more insulting than a non-response.
Because what I would have done if you gave a haha, I'd be like, that's it.
Yeah, because a haha is so like definitive. Like I'm just like trying to end this, you know, like by not saying.
That's totally
anything.
what I would have said if
Yeah.
I didn't want to like bother.
But then I would see,
I'd usually just do LL. I don't even do that. I do
Or
the
an emoji.
where the person falls backwards, and then I know it's a good response where you acknowledged, and then you don't have to talk anymore. Totally
exactly.
right.
The worst is like a thumbs up or something. That's like the worst. Because I do that.
You know
all
what
the
the
time.
worst?
I do the thumbs up.
You know
all
what the
time.
worst is? Okay.
yeah, that's exactly the okay.
Okay.
He has personal experience with that.
Yeah, this.
No, but I didn't mean that. I'm just saying in general.
the
no,
the
but
hand
just say
gesture,
okay.
Like
No,
imagine I tell the whole story and it just goes.
that's
No, the
so
worst. No,
dismissive.
I still think the thumbs up would be a worse one. It's like a thumbs up, like
Good job.
like good for you, you know.
Yeah.
No, what was I gonna say? No, because like, how am I supposed to respond to something like that? You know, like we're all busy and
We're all busy.
no, because it's like I'm thinking, okay, great, you're telling me a dream. So what are you trying to say? Like, just spit it out. Are you trying to say you want to open up a restaurant? Are you getting serious about that idea? Like, then we'll have a conversation, you know. But I don't think you're like I don't think you're serious about that at all, right? So then it's like, okay, well then what's the point of this conversation? You know, like that's just how my mind works. Like I'm not like I'm not trying to be a dick.
Why
about
are you
it,
so
but-
practical about like? But here's one thing: for him, everything has to be reality. If you talk about something, it seems like there's got to be a next step.
Okay, no, see, I think there's a difference. I'm doing like my Trump impression. Like no, like if we were to talk in person, like right now, and you're talking about it, you want to have a conversation, I'd have all the fun with you back and forth, like haha, you know, thinking about possibilities. But like there's something about text messages with me during the day that
At night it's okay, but during the day,
if you're like texting me during the day, especially if I'm busy doing something, and we're all busy doing things, there's got to be like some sort of like
It's like, what do you need?
yeah, what do you need? What do you want?
Yeah.
Like what is this? You know?
Yeah. Was this on a weekday?
yeah.
Yeah, it was the other day.
It's like a
and
morning.
in the morning, like
I was at work because that's the quiet time I have, you know. So that's why.
I get what you're saying.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
And I noticed that you're very, very laconic in text to the point of just like it's a necessary evil. Like
what
you
is
don't, you
laconic?
don't
What does laconic mean?
just like super curt. But I get it because you're kind of in this mode where it's just look, if you really want to have a conversation, we'll have a conversation. But text should just be for like, okay, something needs to get done during the day.
Yeah, especially during like a weekday working hours.
Yeah.
Like
It's like, you want to meet tonight? Okay, we meet. You want to have it, but it should just more be planning purposes, not the actual conversation, because you're more of a long form guy.
yeah, like
yeah.
Yeah.
like someone texting me like a lengthy text about their dream
Yeah.
during the weekday in the morning.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah. Different styles of communication.
Howie's heart is just like shattering. Right?
Yeah.
Shattered.
Yeah.
No,
That's like when your wife wakes up and then tells you, like, I had this dream, you know, and you were really bad in the dream. You're a bad person and blah, blah, blah. And you did all this bad stuff. And I'm like, first of all, like that's your brain that just came up with a bad version. Like the real version of me is good. You know what I'm saying? Like, and like you totally invented that. And it's like, what do you want me to do with the figment of your imagination that was bad? Like, how do I even control that? Like,
There's
like,
a little bit of that. There's a little bit.
That
little
just
bit
shows
of
the difference because, like, for me, it's the story. It's that story is interesting to me. Like you know, if
And it's
you-
the
even,
human connection.
Wait,
Hold on,
even
wait.
if you were to tell me
Where
that,
where did you score on the empathy scale? Because remember, like, Eming was
I was
like,
very high on the empathy
Eming
scale.
is like, yes, I have no empathy.
No, I was very high on empathy scale. So like there is a big part of me like I feel bad about it and I understand. I'm just trying to explain why I didn't
Okay.
respond.
Now, but then you started like jumping to conclusions and stuff a little bit, right? Or what was your
no.
response?
So to me, that was just a big thing that kind of jumped at me. I was like, weird that he didn't even respond to that. But also, then I started connecting other things, like even like the late response to the recording of the show. That just popped in my mind right now. Remember when the haha chat? I was like, so the weekend, you know, blah, blah, what's
Right,
going
a
on,
little
right?
bit.
And then you're like,
and then
I'm
he was
good.
like, and then he was like, well, basically the message was, I can't, you know, I can only meet at 11. So if, you know, whatever, like it was just, you know what it is he's been playing golf. Like when you sent that message, he's literally on like the 7th hole. He's like 4.
Okay, here's the
He's
bombshell.
busy.
Here's the bombshell. You guys ready? I agree. Like I totally have been more distant lately. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
No. I don't think it's not intentional.
Because your family was in town.
Yeah. So I'm aware. Like I'm aware of it. Like I'm like even last night when I didn't really respond to like what time were we like confirmed like hardcore when are we meeting? I knew. I was very aware, like, oh, that could be taken or perceived a certain way, but still, I didn't bother to clarify.
He doesn't
or
give
add
a
any-
shit.
Yeah,
Why would
Right.
you?
Yeah.
He only practices empathy on people he cares about.
Because I feel you guys have done that to me so often
No.
already. I've been on the receiving end of distance for a very long time from you guys, I feel. So I have a little bit of leadway.
Senio, go ahead.
But I came in here kind of feigning that, like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I've been distant. But I feel like, yeah, I have been distant.
Interesting.
But at the same time, if we just look at objectively, like our actions, like each of us, I don't think my actions have been any different than your actions. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's just how I look at it. And I'm not trying to make this a thing. I'm just saying, like, if we're going to talk about it, then I think, you know, we're all guilty of that to some degree.
Well, that's a fair point. But there's also two sides to it. So there's part of it is that it's worth for us to think about our level of engagement normally as friends and like what we can do to just get closer. And if we value this, which I do, that what can we do if we're meeting every week? How can we just stay on the same page a little bit better, help each other, support each other, and just appreciate things because it's something wonderful, right? And at the same time, it's also very individual. So then we also look at something specifically and to say, well, how is each one of us behaving and comparing against the previous and the future use? You know what I'm saying? So part of it, yes, I agree. Like the three of us, the camaraderie, we should make sure that there's not a huge disparity. And at the same time, sometimes we just read into things because if you're a certain way and then all of a sudden you change versus relative to yourself, then it's easy to jump to conclusions too. So there's that aspect of it. But yeah, like if we have been distant or I have been distant in the last few years, and I totally acknowledge it because then I can empathize because sometimes like for weeks, even months, you're just in your own mind because there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, because you prioritize. You prioritize different things, and
Or you prioritize, but sometimes like it's not even a conscious thing. It's just like there's pressure coming around you, and then you're just in that world. And that's where people can get distant, and then friendships start sort of unraveling a little bit. And then you have to work against that. You have to fight that.
Yeah, you're right. Like there's so many drivers there, like in terms of, I think the jumping to conclusions one is huge, right? Like so much, I think, of conflict in general, like from the most like trivial scale to like large scale comes from that. But it's also really fucked up, this conversation, in the sense that for me, I know how my actions can be like very distant sometimes, and maybe I don't respond to texts and things like that, right? The fucked up thing is when people do that to me, I'm like super sensitive about it. So I'm just doing what I like don't like people doing to me, but I'm doing it to other people.
Yeah.
And it's a cycle and it's just weird. Like I don't know what the psychology is
We
exactly
talked about
behind
that
that.
a little bit. Remember, like the it's not exactly the same, but like the actor observer thing. So like when someone does something and then you perceive them as being a dick, but when you do it, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, exactly. And so I've been trying to work on that.
But I think that psychology is less actor observer. Could it be to a certain level, like almost like a revenge kind of thing,
I was maybe not revenge. I was gonna say like maybe like a self-defense.
like a backlash, or kind of like.
No, more self protection.
I'm going to give an example.
You're not gonna give. You don't give a shit about me. I'm not gonna give a shit about you either.
All right, I'm going to show you something petty.
well, with you guys, it might be a little.
I'm going to show you
revenge.
something petty. I'm going to show you something petty. I'm going to open up right now.
Fucking.
I'm going to open up right now. I'm going to show you my petty side.
Okay,
He's,
I already know your
he's the
petty side.
most petty of the three of us.
Am I really the most
yes,
petty?
I think so.
Really?
I'm not that petty.
Did you see our faces? Did you see
The
our faces?
ridiculousness of that statement.
Right. So anyway, so I just mentioned about your late response on in our group chat, right? And then, but you said, I think you said, okay, 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock, you responded, right? And then I remember yesterday morning, I saw it, I listened to it, but I was with my kid, right? I could have just said, yeah. Right. Okay, cool. 11 o'clock, then it is, right? But then I looked at it, I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna respond right now. Right? And in my mind, it was not like being like, I'm too busy to respond. I'm like, well, he took so long, I'll just respond when I get a little more time because I got Mackenzie in my arm right now, right? Yeah. So then I'd do my thing, and then when everything was done, I got home out of the whole freaking day. I sat down on the couch, then I responded. I'm like, okay, right?
There is definitely that level of pettiness.
Passive aggressiveness too.
But I feel like that's not unique to you.
Yeah, no,
so
I
don't
know.
be too hard on
I know
yourself with
it's
that.
not
Like,
me, yeah.
I feel like I do a little bit of that, but I feel like a lot of people do. Do you ever notice this, right? And again, I don't want to jump to conclusions here, but I've noticed and observed this thing, right? Generally speaking, obviously there are exceptions, where forget between us, just colleagues or other people, when you're texting them, if they or if you take a long time to respond to like reply to their text, usually they'll also take a long time to reply to yours and vice versa, right? It's very rare that if you like take like hours or a day or two to respond to someone's text that they respond right away to you. So it's also this like tick for tack type of thing.
It's human
right?
psychology.
It's
really
a little
weird.
bit. It feels like that could be
Because you don't
there.
want to be the one that's sort of the chump in it.
Or like look to be the eager one, like, oh,
Right.
I've been here waiting
Right.
to respond to you,
Right.
You know,
Yeah, and I've thought about that, right? Like even emails, you get a work email, and do you respond immediately? You know, there's like hierarchy, there's all kinds of stuff. You know, then I think there's different filters. Then you could just be like, okay, look, if I see something, I'm just gonna respond.
yeah.
Because like, why think so much, right? Like, what's actually better just from a productivity perspective?
And I think there's a little bit of like this implication of if you respond too quickly, you're perceived as, oh, you're not that busy. You must have nothing to do, right? Like, and if I take a while, that means like that
Yes.
must imply I'm
Yeah.
busy. I'm an important man. I'm making big moves, right?
Yeah.
Blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
yeah, yeah.
Big moves.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's a power dynamic. And conversely, let's say you're messaging someone and they take a long time, then it's like, well, do they not care about me, or am I not that important? Especially if you're sending something to someone that you place some importance on.
Yeah. And I would like to take this opportunity because this is exactly, I think, what's been happening to one of my oldest friends. And I hope he's listening right now, Adam Trank. You know, I've had him on the show.
Yeah, I was listening to that
Yeah, he's my
episode the other
friend from
day.
Arizona. You know, I grew up with him. And so he's been, he's always been more proactive in texting me and checking up on me. How you doing? I want to like, and typical me, like sometimes I don't even respond to that, right? It's like, it's bad. It's really bad. But what I love about him is that he doesn't buy into any of this petty bullshit. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't buy in
Yeah.
not 1 ounce. So I can take like a month, like literally a month to respond to him, like maybe like an Instagram message or something. And then like literally as like 2 seconds after I press send, bloop, he has a reply. Hey, how you doing? Blah blah. Like, and he's super busy. You know, he's doing like great things. So he's never like he's above all that shit.
Mm.
And I feel like that's his character, and he's always been above that shit. Like all that petty shit, he could care less for it, you know. And I think that's rare. I think that's rare in people.
I think
so
that's
I just
a
want to
great
point that out.
example. No, it's a great example. Yeah, I was listening to that because you guys did it a long time ago, and I was listening. I was like, wow, it was very inspirational, and his like grandfather and all that stuff, right?
Can we break down a little bit
Yeah.
of why it took you a month to respond to a message from one of your close friends?
Wait, hold on. Yeah, well, in general, why is your default distance to response?
As opposed to immediately just get
Right.
it over with.
Yeah,
Respond.
because that's what I kind of like about Howie is that he's pretty fast. But then again, it's also his social media addiction thing, which is there's another dark side to it.
I think it's this. Because as you said before, if it's something more task oriented, like, hey, let's meet, or what do you want to meet, or I need to do this, like, what do I do? Like, you know, something very task actionable, I'm usually pretty quick to respond, right? I feel like if it's something more emotional in the sense that, like, hey, one of my good friends or great friends is reaching out to me, like you guys reach out to me sometimes, I feel like I can't just be like very surface with a reply. And I feel like I need to put my heart into this. And I don't always do that, but I always feel like I need to. And so I hold off on any sort of immediate response because I think it deserves more than that. But then what ends up happening is I always think there's like a better time for me to respond to this.
Totally.
And then there never is a better time, right? There's never a better time than right now, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I keep pushing it off like there is.
Procrastination.
But it's also you're procrastinating facing these emotions, facing this issue that you need to deal with.
And then the longer the time I procrastinate with
the worse it gets.
the worse it gets, and the more I feel like I need to put even more into that message now because it's been so long, right?
You better be dropping bombs.
Yeah,
then.
exactly. This better be a gem.
No, but then there's like the perfectionism aspect, and I kind of wrestle with that. So what I've been just trying to coach myself is like, what's the minimal amount of effort you can put into something while still demonstrating whatever empathy or acknowledgement? Because if you just said okay, then obviously like that's terrible, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but you could always say something like, laugh out loud, it's so funny, like we should talk about it on the show or something. You know, there's
Or give me some time. Give me some
Yeah.
time, to gather my thoughts.
Yeah. But I can totally relate to that. And I had one time, like there was someone that I really admired and respected and had known for a long time. And then I sent this person a pretty heartfelt note, and then they never responded. Well, eventually they did, but they didn't respond for quite a while. But I know this person has a lot of responsibilities, is very busy, and I try not to read into it too much. And so I just try to like reframe things in my head and practice all my mindfulness. But you know, I have to admit that it was a little bit hurtful. And then, I mean, literally, it was a happy moment. A couple months later, this person wrote and basically just said, like, look, every time that I tried to respond, something just came up. And I could totally, I know this person has tons of responsibility, right? Quite a senior person. And I was just like, oh, and it was just nice to kind of close that loop so I didn't have to. But I think we should have a little bit more confidence in ourselves. You know someone for 10 years, right? They're not going to all of a sudden, you know.
But there's always that little inkling of doubt,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Like, oh, where do I really stand with this person?
Yeah.
But that one taught me, and so then having that positive example is like, don't read into it.
Yeah. And I like this idea that you kind of mentioned was like this idea of closure too, right? Like when we don't close the loop on something, like even a conversation or a text like message thread that we're talking about, it kind of it bothers you.
Yeah,
know?
imagine I didn't bring this up. I'm forever
Just holding it
in my heart that Justin is getting more and more distant and doesn't give a fuck about shit I say.
That's your jumping to conclusions. But
Can we talk about jumping to conclusions?
But part of it is, if at possible, don't leave people hanging.
Yeah.
But sometimes it happens, and I leave people hanging a lot too, just because in that moment you just forget. And at the same time, look at the totality of the relationship, and you don't take one thread out of context, because that's you just stabbing yourself with that arrow.
Yeah. Referencing what I was just saying about my friend Adam, right? So I just remember the last message he sent me, because it had been a long time since I replied to his several messages, and I was like, I apologized, like, hey man, like sorry, like, and then he responded with this word for word. He's like, you know me, I don't stand on ceremony, right?
Nice.
And I just kind of put it really
nice.
clearly, like he's
Nice.
like, you know me, I don't stand on ceremony, like it's all good, and then blah blah blah, and then we started, and then so. And that's just kind of person he is, and I love that kind of person, right? So that's that. But also, it's like never too late. I remember, this is a really good example. I had reached out. This is a long time ago. So prior to the lockdown, I had actually put out some feelers for some potential guests I wanted to get on to the show. And then the lockdown happened. So literally like a whole year or more than a year goes by. And I'm like scrolling through my WeChat messages one day when I'm like sitting in the taxi. And I realize I scroll like all the way down, right? And I see like these old messages of me reaching out to these guests like years ago. And they had responded. And they had responded with, yeah, man, like it would be great to come on the show. Like, yeah, well, how should we do this? Like, let's, and then I would respond, be like, okay, yeah, let me get some dates back to you and we can figure this out, right? Silence for years, right? And so I'm like, oh my God, I feel so bad, because like these were people that were referred to us through people we knew, and it's like I had to reach out to them. They were excited to come on the show, and then I just went dark on them. So I felt really bad about that. But I think it could have been really easy for me to just forget it and just like, okay, well,
Let it be.
well, that's a bridge we'll never cross. But I made it a point to text them, like cold out of the blue, like after all this time. Hey, you might not remember me, but I reached out to you a long time ago about coming on podcast. I'm really sorry it took blah, 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 blah. And threw it out there. And they responded back. They're like, hey man, it's all good. But I'm like, I'm not in China anymore. So it's like, we can't do this podcast. And I'm like, yeah, it's all good. I wasn't trying to like necessarily get you on the podcast. I just wanted to let you know that I didn't ignore you on purpose. It was not intentional.
Yeah.
And it was important for me to say that, because I felt like I wanted to close that loop, right? I wanted to get some closure around that and not let that person be out in the ether, in the world, thinking I'm an asshole. So, that's like kind of like a like a little selfish way of looking at it. But I felt maybe it does bring some closure to all the parties involved. And it's never too late, right?
There's the other side to it, that person has some closure to it, and then doesn't feel. Because the more that people close the loop, I think the world is just better, because, like you said earlier, misunderstandings happen because, like, in a specific moment, we've got lots of stuff going on, and then that loop doesn't get closed, And, like, there's so many things that get in the way, and then you can jump to conclusions, and then all of a sudden you feel like most of the world is shitty. And it's not. It's just because people have other priorities. And the more that you can close the loop and just be above things, you'll feel better, because then you'll be like Adam, because you won't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
Wait, was that wasn't there a show that was like, don't sweat the small stuff? Was that Adam's
I think
show?
that was Adam's. Yeah, that was Adam's.
That's so funny, because I didn't remember the title, but then that came to mind. And just
don't sweat the small shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And because like a little, like if you practice a little bit of empathy, I guess you put yourself in their shoes. And if I were them, like the guests I was talking about, I'd be a little more sensitive to it, and I'd be a little self-conscious about it. Like, hey, I agreed to come on the show, and this guy went cold on me.
Yeah, totally.
I would have all these questions, right? And it would kind of eat at me maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I thought, let's just let them know, like, hey, I didn't do this intentionally. It was an honest mistake.
Interesting. It's definitely interesting. One thing I do, I don't know if anybody does this, but when I don't reply immediately to something, because like you said, you have to put thought into it, or maybe it's something you can't really answer immediately, so you have to get back to them, but then you forget. It's common. It's normal for people to forget. I just pin it. And so all my pinned conversations mean that either it's an important conversation, someone I talk to often, or I need to reflect back to that conversation, or I haven't responded yet. So it's up there. And I just constantly sometimes look at my pins. I'm like, who's on the bottom? Oh, I got to respond to that. It's been about a week, and then I'll just respond. So, and then I'll unpin it once it's done.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good system.
So that's something
Yeah.
that I do.
I do that for work, but then the downside is like, I mean, there's always
So
shit-
many freaking pins,
I know,
right?
And then you're always at some point you've got to shut off too.
Yeah.
So there's a balance because it's never ending. It's
Yeah.
like the never ending list of
Yeah.
things. And honestly, sometimes people will care, but a lot of people they didn't give a shit either, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to read too much into people will feel hurt or something like that. You just want to be a good person.
I feel like this conversation was leading into, it's almost as if we're creating a book on text message etiquette, right? And we're breaking down the different types of.
Well, rule number 1: don't fucking send novels of your
during
fucking
work
dream
hours.
to work hours and then get all like hurt about it.
Yeah, the thing is, I think most people actually have this text message etiquette. You know?
We're just like sociopaths.
Yeah.
No, but I think this concept of jumping to conclusions is such a big problem that I can't say me. I just think humans have. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
It's the root of so many arguments that I've had. And I'm sure all of you can agree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I always hang that over, for example, my lovely wife. I'm like, why are you jumping to conclusions? Why are you assuming? Stop. And okay, have you ever heard this saying? I said this to her once, and she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, stop assuming. Do you know how to spell assume? What happens when you spell assume? You know that saying?
You make
Have
an
you-
ass out of you and
You
me.
and me, yeah. And she'd be like, what the fuck are you telling me that for?
But you're assuming too. You're jumping to conclusions of her jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, but I was making a joke out of it because of assume. When
Yeah,
you
yeah.
when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me because that spells assume. And that's something we grew up on, right? But a lot of fights come out of assumptions because you're assuming I didn't know what I was doing. You're assuming that I didn't care about this. You're assuming that I prioritized that over this,
You're
etc.
assuming intent most of the time.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Because it's hard to approve intent, right? That's one of the things that's hard to really improve. So it falls on assumption a lot of the time, right? Like this is a human's work. I can't prove the intent, but I can assume based on what I've perceived
You
and how I feel.
infer.
You
You
infer.
infer.
Which jumps to conclusions.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So why do we jump to conclusions? What's going on?
I think we just
Some
in
sort of
general-
shortcut
I feel yeah,
mechanism,
it's a
I think.
shortcut because I feel like intrinsically we all need answers. And when an answer is not so concrete and clear, you can only jump to a conclusion. You can only infer or assume because you're not receiving the facts or whatever.
But you're doing it too quickly is what's happening too.
I think there's a speed element to it, but I think, at least in my experience, I think there's a big aspect of how you perceive the person to begin with. Right? I feel like we take all these shortcuts in terms of summarizing a person. The person's like this, and you label that person a certain way in your head, and so anything that kind of comes out of that person, especially when there's tension, you rely on those character traits or that labeling to infer a lot of things.
And this is also
as a
conscious
mental
labeling,
short-
right?
Oh, absolutely. Eric, I feel like when it comes to me and you do that to me. And it's because it's so weird because Eric, you are like you're like one of the most open-minded, critically thinking like people I know. Like you are super compassionate in that way. But I just feel like sometimes when we talk, you label me as this, right? And I think one of the labels, and I don't think you would disagree, one of the labels you give me is that I'm a contrarian. So you label me as a contrarian. You think that's where my perspectives come from, and a lot of things like that's where like a lot of my intention might be rooted from. And so I realize like sometimes when we're talking on the podcast, and I say something that's could be a little controversial, you know, a little maybe a little bit out there sometimes. you automatically assume and jump to that conclusion that I'm doing it for the sake of being contrarian, instead of maybe that's how I actually believe, and maybe I have my reasons to believe that way, right? So I feel like there's almost a little bit of misunderstanding there that bothers me a little bit, you know, if we're being honest. And so, and I'm sure I do the same to you. I'm sure I do the same to Howie. Like I'm not innocent of this either.
Everybody does.
Yeah. But I'm just using that as an example of, I think when we label people a certain way, and we all label people a certain way, we all tend to judge a book by its cover in many ways as well. Our assumptions, we use that to jump to conclusions because we feel like, oh, I already know you, so I don't need to like hear you out completely.
Yeah.
I know where you're coming from already. Say no more. Right?
Well, that's why people also cut off conversations sometimes.
And I do that too. I do that with my wife all the time, and she calls me out on it.
Really? She calls you out.
But the funny thing with that is, I have yet to be proven wrong. You know?
Okay, let me comment. Can I comment on that?
What a dick!
I know, what a dick. Like,
I'm
comment on
half
that.
joking. Come on.
Let me comment on that. So, it's true that if you know someone like pretty well, that maybe sometimes you can guess what they're going to say based on some of the patterns. And at the same time, I think it's important to let that person actually air that out, because it doesn't matter sort of like what you know intellectually, what they're going to say. It's more about the emotion behind it and letting them do
Being
that.
heard.
And being heard. Exactly. Yeah. Right. The empathy piece. So it's interesting that this notion of empathy, because you scored pretty high on empathy in that personality test. But even then, there's certain contexts where maybe you're not practicing, or certain people.
Well, no, this is one of the reasons why I love that Lumina Spark personality assessment we took, because remember the 3 personas, right? So in my underlying and everyday, I'm very, very high on empathetic. In my overextended persona, I'm actually much lower empathy and very high logical. So that explains, like, when I get into an argument with my wife, I'm in an overextended persona.
Yes.
I'm stressed. It's maybe something I didn't expect, right? I'm not planned.
You didn't expect.
My back's against the wall a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I lose all empathy and swing all the way logical and be like, I can save both of us 10, 15 minutes here. Let's just get to the point. I already know what you're going to say. Yeah. Meanwhile, to your point, Eric, I'm not letting her air out her frustrations, right? So,
oh my God, I feel like I'm probably similar to you.
We're all
no, but that's why when I looked at that assessment, I'm like, oh wow, it explains a lot.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Okay, and then I want to go back to your point about the contrarian thing. So helping me and helping each other understand what assumptions we're making in a non-heated, like if we're in the mode, it's really hard to kind of, there's this terminology of like walking down your ladder, because like you move up your ladder of all these assumptions, right? So there's this metaphor of a ladder where how your mind works, and then you walk back down the ladder. Helping each other understand what our ladders look like, I think is very, really, really powerful, because we're not in that heated mode, so I won't be defensive. And then I can, in my overextended state, I can practice empathy and be like, yeah, actually I do that. And I didn't know it bothered you. Even when we don't get into an argument, that probably damages the relationship. So part of this making assumptions thing, it chips away at a relationship. And hopefully there's a lot of positive things. But then when a relationship goes in a certain way you didn't expect, it's because you've been chipping away at it for a long time. And the other person, it never got to the point where it boiled over, right? But then it kind of bothers you. You guys are pretty good. I would just say, to be honest, I feel like I don't feel you two judge me too much. Like, you'll joke with me and stuff like that, but I think both of you are fairly understanding, where I know that I can be very judgmental. And so not making assumptions, right? Not judging things, and actually just sort of walking back down your ladder, so that when you select, like what we say is when you select the information and then you interpret the information and then you draw a conclusion, you've got to be very careful not to go too quickly.
You're right, and I think it comes back to that assuming intent thing, right? I think between me and you, the reason why it stuck out to me is because it usually always ends up with you getting either angry or frustrated with me, because you think like I'm either just fucking with you, or just being contrarian for the sake of contrarian. And your voice on this podcast, you're representing yourself and a lot of things. So, you know, there's everything at stake here. And so I feel like you get frustrated if you think I'm saying something controversial, if I'm just saying it for controversy's sake, right? And that frustrates you. And I totally get that. That would frustrate myself. But I don't think that's ever really been the case. Like, I might pose controversial questions just to spitball for entertainment's sake. But I feel like most of the time, if I'm expressing my own point of view on something, I'm never just going to be like, oh, here's a controversial statement that I believe just for the sake of being controversial. No, like I actually really feel that way.
And so so it's really interesting because I remember, I can feel it because it's happened. But I think it's super helpful, which is that if I'm putting this frame on it, let's say that I'm framing it as like you're being contrarian on purpose, and then that irks me a little bit. But if I were to reframe it and say, oh, it's more just curiosity, because being contrarian means like you're taking a point of view, like you're forcing something, you're forcing the issue, and that, of course, like that would, I don't know why that would bother me, but it does, right? But if I say, oh, actually, he's just being curious, he's just trying to look at it from a different angle, he's genuinely curious, which I think now when I think about it, you're just actually asking a question, then I won't interpret it and conclude, and then that will like help us avoid conflict that doesn't actually need to happen. Like if there's real conflict, fine. But there's actually no difference in our values in that particular thing. And it's like 没事找事 kind of thing.
Well, I think that's
really good. I'm glad I appreciate you helping me then rationalize it a little better.
Well, it's a two-way street, man. Like, I'm learning from this too. And I think that's the tragedy in and I think 99% of our arguments that we've ever had on and off air, I think were totally unnecessary. Like,
They're unnecessary.
Like completely, like no rhyme or reason to even have this, like be in this state right now. But it happens, and it's just like, well, why does it keep happening? We can start looking like to your point, like we can start understanding and uncovering like the mechanisms behind like why we get to that, how we get
the
to
mechanism,
there.
yeah.
And that ladder you're talking about, how we climb it so quickly.
It's
up
called
there.
the ladder of inference.
Yeah.
It's like because you infer things, you jump up, and the problem is like part of it is the reason that we do it, because you use the word like a mental shortcut, exactly, is that information is coming so fast, and we have lots of bias because you might be shaped by a certain experience. Maybe you had a bad experience with someone or a type of person. That's where like I think racism happens all the time, prejudice. So you have this, and it shapes you because we have to be able to respond fast to our environment. Like that is essential to survival. But then in these social contexts, it can be really, really damaging.
Yeah, I forgot who brought this up, but I remember a discussion being had. Maybe one of you guys have seen this before, heard about this before, where you just mentioned how we are sort of built a certain way to survive. We have these survival instincts, right? Well, one of them is to be able to critically break down what's around you and understand what's going on quickly. Right, so then you can assess: are you in danger or you're not? And that was back in the day. That was back when we had to rely on that to survive. We are living in a different world now, where society, the modern society as we know it, is completely different than back in the day. So we don't need those instincts as much as we did back in the day. But those instincts still translate to mundane day-to-day arguments, to mundane day-to-day encounters, that these encounters that used to be a tiger but now is a friend that is
late response to a text message.
Exactly, a late response with a text message.
Yeah.
They equate the same thing to your brain.
Yeah.
And in a similar way. So you have these instincts that you can't control, that's inside you. The only thing you can do is constantly remind yourself consciously that you have these issues, right? We all have issues that we have to be conscious about. And that's a thing that I think I don't want to assume. Here I go again. I'm assuming. But I can assume that most people don't consciously think about. They don't think about why they react a certain way. They don't think about why they say the things they say. They just do, right? And one thing that
it's easier that
it's
way.
much easier. And the one thing that I feel very happy about, confident about, and proud of with our discussions on the show is that whether or not we are able to practice what we preach, but at least we are bringing it up and we're talking about it. And at least that subconsciously, it's just a little reminder that we are not a slave to our instincts. We don't need to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether or not we can succeed in
It's hard.
breaking it, right? Because most likely than not, you can't.
No.
It's instinct. It's
But
so
that's like
deeply
wisdom.
rooted in you.
That's why, like, part of it is wisdom. That's why the village elders back in the day, they get to a point where they can slow their thinking down a little bit. This goes back to Daniel Kahneman, right?
you
Thinking
love
Fast and-
Daniel Kahneman.
Danny K.
Yeah.
DK.
Well, he passed away. So rest in peace.
Is this
Like,
recent?
Yeah, a few weeks
Oh,
ago.
shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rest in
it
peace.
was- and he was, he talked about system 1 and system 2 and like this metaphor for how the brain works. And so for most of history, like system 1, but now we have to slow our thinking a little bit down. And he was in general, I think, somewhat pessimistic because even he was struggling with this to slow things down in a certain way. And so there are different techniques like reframing things, that awareness, but it's hard because this is your survival instinct,
Yeah.
like Matt Beadle. Remember Matt Beadle?
yeah.
And he was saying, so the signal, he said something like this. I don't know how scientific it is, but he said the signals are so fast that it's in your limbic part of your brain. And what you need to do is consciously practice mindfulness so that you can slow the signal down enough so that it reaches your prefrontal cortex, the advanced part, the non-reptilian part of your brain, And so there are system 1, system 2, but the more also you can train your system 1 through your system 2 so your instincts themselves have built-in powers of system 2, like a chess player or firefighter. They actually, over time, they can instinctively respond in a positive way because their system 2 sort of is indirectly training their system 1.
It's almost like pattern delineation.
Yeah.
Right?
Mental models. That's what
Yeah.
people use mental models for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because like it does tie back into this idea of being formulaic, like input output, right?
Yeah.
And how do you rewire that input output so a specific input has a different output, right? It's
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, no matter how you wire it, it's still it's still a formula of input output. It's just about how you direct it. Yes.
Hey, I have a question for you guys. I don't think I've ever asked this, but I'm sure we all know people in our lives that are super intelligent, really smart, cultured, et cetera, but at the same time are very, I don't want to say closed-minded, but maybe closed off to some of these topics that we talk about, which is talking about self-improvement, talking about being cognizant of our biases, being cognizant of our reptilian mind, for example. Do you guys know people like that are?
No, I don't know. I don't.
You ever think about that?
I think about it in the context of certain topics,
Okay.
but those topics tend not to be things of self-improvement. But I think when it comes to like certain, like, again, like if you get into politics, then I think there are people who can be like super open-minded, but on certain political issues, then it's just like there's no room for discussion there. It's just like, so then I find that to be a little weird, but that's about it.
Yeah, there are certain.
Do you have an example?
Well, there's a couple of people that come to mind immediately. I would bring up the idea of observing oneself, like really look in the mirror and think about who you are. Think about why you do the things you do. You're so smart. You're so freaking ridiculous. Like so much smarter than I am. Yet you refuse to look at yourself, or you refuse to think about maybe there are ways to improve. Okay, let me be more specific. I don't want to name names because I think one of them listens to this. One person is very smart, like I said, really smart and stuff like that. When thinking about self-improvement, it's only about fitness. For example, yeah, self-improvement. Yeah, I got to get more fit. No, but what about mentally? You're an asshole. You're not really nice as a person. There's a lot of aspects to yourself that I think that if you were to work on, you would be even more amazing.
Are you sure you're not talking about Eric right now? He talks about fitness all the time.
Yeah. No,
He's
definitely not Eric. But they would say, they would just basically discount what I say and be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. So there are people like that, very close-minded
I get it.
mindfulness, to things like that.
They think it's like spiritual bullshit, mumbo jumbo. It doesn't work. But what if they said, okay, and this may be judgmental, but that's not my intention. But what if because you said that they're into fitness, so okay, let's assume for a moment that they're fit. What if they said, well, Howie, you think about all this stuff, but you're not really in good physical shape, right? Like, then how do you perceive that? Because because what I'm hearing, and it probably isn't your intention, is that they could be a better version of themselves if they embrace certain things. But is that for you to judge, or is that for you to make that assessment? Because it sounds like you're trying to get them to change in a way that you want them to change, but is that fair?
You're jumping to the conclusion that that's what I wanted them to do. It's a conversation. It's something that,
but in the beginning,
Everyone's jumping to conclusions.
Right, but in the beginning, okay, because typically people change not so much because there's an upside sometimes, because we respond, and if you read a lot of, like, again, Kahneman and Tversky, so people respond better to like the threat of something bad happening more than the upside of something good happening. Okay, so that's like a little bit of
Loss aversion,
prospect theory, or stuff like that. So typically then people, when then they have a failure, or they hit a wall in their life, and they're like, oh, I need to change, right? So are there from your perspective, are there parts of this person's life where they're failing, where they're hitting a wall, where they're actually not achieving the goals that they want? Because it's not the goals that you want for them, it's the goals that they want for themselves. Or is this just something where you feel like they could be better from your standard of your expectation?
Yeah, I think it's just, I was trying to almost project these ideas onto that other person, because the conversations we had about their failures, I just want to be like, if you only just adjusted a couple of things, that wouldn't be an issue anymore.
Right.
And so when I think of these ideas, and when we were discussing before you came in about the idea of, should you just accept who you are, or should you aim to be that better person?
But I think you should always aim to be better. But okay, we were talking about some things like goals, and we're all obviously quite, I think, we're kind of like overachievers, maybe in some sense, or maybe there's a certain element of, how our parents raised us, or, but I think there are goals that you have, right? Whether they're professional or whatever it is. And like, sometimes these are really lofty goals. And I think the question was, are these goals really realistic? Am I spending a lot of time still thinking about these things, going after them, but maybe like I should accept like the reality of things?
I think to detach emotion from it, the question would be, do you know yourself well enough that you can decide whether to pursue these lofty goals, or pursue these big dreams, or whatever? Or do you know yourself well enough that you should just let that go and just appreciate what you have now, and, with your day-to-day, and maximize that happiness, and maximize the time you have on this earth?
Yeah.
Not dwelling on are you achieving those successes? Are you achieving this? Or am I able to get to there? Or am I not? Am I failing? Am I all that negative that may come with not accomplishing goals or dreams? This came from me building, got my notebook out. I started putting out my habit tracking, right? Because we always talk about it, and I used to do it. I'm like, I'm gonna get back into that. So I started doing my habit tracking again, because I'm looking at, am I really naturally doing these changes, or am I forcing myself to do these changes? Is it positive on my mental health to do these changes? And then I noticed myself obviously putting a lot of time into analyzing my habit tracking, and then I started thinking about, why am I even doing all this stuff? Like, am I really going to be able to keep that habit? Am I really going to be able to do this long term? So that's how the conversation came. It's not about doing like these lofty goals. It's about, am I the type of person that's going to be able to stick with this change? Am I the type of person, because I've already failed like 50,000 times. Am I the person that's going to be, oh, this time it's going to change?
It's scary too, because I had that same feeling before, where sometimes I was like, just wake up, and I'd be like, this is who you are. You're just,
Yeah,
don't
that's the conversation.
Stop
Exactly.
fooling yourself.
That's the conversation.
You're never gonna change, and it's very scary.
Yeah.
Because then you're just like, I'm just living in a loop, and I'm always gonna be this way, right? And it's a very dark, pessimistic way of thinking of things. If I have to think about it now, I would say it's somewhere in between. And I would say you have to balance that. Like, that's only one side of the story. You have to ask yourself, what are things that I'm doing now that I've achieved, that I've accomplished, that I've changed, where when I look back 20 years ago, I could never imagine myself doing that. And you're going to find things in that other bucket too. So you can't just focus on the bucket of things that like you've always wanted to do and you failed 50,000 times, because you're going to find stuff where like you failed 50,000 times and then one day you made that breakthrough. And you have to believe that, because if you do go into this with that negative feeling, we all have these moments, then you're done. Game over. Just jump off a cliff. It's over. Right? Because you're never going to win. If you already given up before you even started, but I can totally relate to the idea of like, there's so many things in my life that I've always wanted to do and I've failed over and over and over and over and over as well. And you can keep telling yourself that narrative, but it's a very dangerous and toxic one to have. But we all have it all the time.
I mean, it sounds like you're selecting for failure by focusing on and only keeping track of the quote unquote analytics that you failed at. There's so many things you can focus on and keep track of if you want to live that way. And you've always been about that. You're more like, you like these keeping notes and logging and looking at analytics and all these apps that you're into, blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, I'm very different, right? My personality is very different than that. There's no judgment there on that's how you want to live. But it just seems like when you do it, you really select for the things that would highlight or notify you of failure first. And so you get fixated on, have I failed yet? Have I failed yet? Have I failed yet? Where am I failing? And maybe that's not the best mindset to have if you're trying to build something. And so, because who hasn't continuously failed? I don't know of any successful person that hasn't routinely failed in a million other things in their lives. I don't know. And there's a little bit of like conflating like who you are to that, which to me doesn't really make a lot of sense. Who you are and how you define your goals are kind of two separate things in my book.
Yeah, and I think it's about,
like, what if you only focus on the things you did and fuck the things you didn't do?
so basically, what I'm trying to get at is these are all not working, right? And and nothing has stuck. I've been on this earth for 40-something years, and I've just been on this roller coaster, yo-yo, right? And do you kind of come to terms with yourself that this is your life, or is there another way? You know what I mean? That's like, I think that's what I'm trying to get at, because the habit building, like these habit tracking, it works.
I don't think that's
it
the right
works.
question. But anyways, like, I'm gonna be judgmental right now.
Of course you will.
Like, because it's just easier.
Go for it.
Because it's just easier.
What I'm gonna say is that, like, first of all, I don't buy into that negative narrative, because as a human being, you can't. And the question that I would ask is just like, what are the consequences if you don't change? It's not so much like, oh, I'm a fucking asshole, I'm going to be an asshole forever. Like, you got to get past
Well,
that
just
one.
like you said, sometimes when you don't react or you don't really do these huge changes until shit hits the fan.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, like, it depends what you're trying to change. I don't know. I believe in the mindset of, and Eric talks about this all the time, it's the growth mindset. And part of that growth mindset to me is always allowing yourself the opportunity to surprise yourself. I like to think about myself that way, that I can always surprise myself. And why does it come as a surprise? Because it might be something really hard, or might be something maybe I don't think I'm cut out for. But if you are practical enough and pragmatic enough and actually have some realistic goals that you set, then I think you can continuously surprise yourself just by making the effort. So, like, I don't know, but then it begs the question, like, are you saying you're not the kind of person that would put in the effort to do it? Like,
Look,
you know what I'm trying to say?
Let's step back for a moment, right? Look, whatever you're trying to do, it's not easy. Let's just acknowledge that, right? Let's acknowledge that. Let's acknowledge his emotions first. It's important to you, and it's important enough that you would
I'm
even
gonna cut you
want
off
to
right
bring it
now.
up.
To be honest with you, it really wasn't about me. Okay, it really was. I was honestly asking the question before about, do we know people about closed-minded and, like, you know, not accepting of different thoughts, and because they're so used to being there certain ways and stuff like that, because I have specific people in my mind that are like that. Suddenly, I don't know how, I think it was because of me, I was calling back to this conversation that we were having before you came back in, and all of a sudden it became about me.
No,
I didn't want to make it about me.
But you made that pivot
I know,
yourself.
I know.
Because I wasn't even going there.
I know,
and you reminded me that you had a conversation about some things you were trying to do, and like you were trying to figure out how to do it, and should I just give up?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then it totally was about you.
Yeah. And that's, I did not want to lead into that, and then all of a sudden it just started
you did
compounding.
it.
I know. I said I know it's probably me. I'm saying it just compounded to go in that way. But that's not the point. The point was I didn't want to talk about that.
Okay, what's the point? God damn it, what's the point?
The funny part was when you asked him, like, where's this going? And then he totally brought it on himself, right? And then now he's like, actually, I didn't want to talk about it. I was like, okay. It's fine. And then I was trying to, like, I was just like, okay, well, let's acknowledge his emotions. Exactly. No, it's not about my emotions.
That's what I can't.
It just seems like we're talking about like three different things in one and trying to like mix them into one conversation. Like, I don't understand, because one is being closed-minded. Another thing is like, are we just like not cut out, and do we just need to accept like the realities of our nature?
Yeah.
The other thing is like, how do we set goals, and like how do we keep track of the goals and the failure and blah blah.
Nice summary.
And it just seems like we're looping around on these three things, and I don't understand how they're all tying together.
I'm gonna pull old school Eric. Old school Eric, not new Eric. Old school Eric. And I fucked it all up because
It's okay.
Yeah,
Don't blame yourself.
yeah, I fucked it all up.
No, I think there was
The
some things
first
in there.
70 minutes was strong.
No. Yeah.
Oh, very
Yeah,
strong.
Very
before
strong.
I asked the question of the whole
Closed-mindedness.
it was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Great, one of the
I
best.
fucked it
One
up.
of the best we've ever had.
I fucked it up. I admit it. I fucked it
You
up.
didn't
No.
fuck anything up. I just think you're going through some shit that it's kind of hard for you to clean up in your own mind right now.
Yeah.
Because it's complicated, it's emotional, it's all the things, and there's part of it, some of it you don't want to talk about on air too. So it's like, it's difficult. I don't know.
You're okay, and without putting words, and we can pivot after this. We're all human beings, so there's multiple threads that are going on, right? Like the show is about having one topic at a time. But like for us as human beings, all these topics are happening inside of us at the same time. You can't like really take them apart. And so there are a lot it sounds like there's those three things, I think, that was a pretty good summary. And so they were all going on, but then you had an idea of like where you wanted to take this on the show, and then it just kind of crashed into each other.
Yeah. Did you understand what I said about pulling old school Eric?
I know. Yeah.
What is an old school?
Do
Eric?
you know what that means?
What is that? Just bouncing?
No, shutting down. Just,
Oh, right.
just
right.
not gonna talk.
Right,
just shutting
right,
down.
right.
Because then you were like, explain, blah, blah. I'm like,
No.
old school Eric.
It's okay.
I'm
It's
done.
okay.
Because I know how you felt. Right now, I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
Because I started exposing myself, right? And after exposing myself, noticing that the way the conversation was going, I didn't like the way the conversation was going, because part of it is I brought it up, and it also makes me look bad. And so I shut down now. So then I started being like, I don't want to be a part of this conversation anymore. It's done. So is that something that you would feel, or is that something?
Yeah,
Again,
like you get frustrated, and you
Right?
just
It's
peace
just
out.
frustration because I could not articulate what I was thinking.
But we were trying, like, and I think like maybe we tried too hard to.
Yeah, because I didn't want to make it.
But like I think we had all three of us had positive intent.
It was
so
good,
a good thing.
but the crux is I didn't want to make it about myself, even though I brought it all.
Right, but it's so hard.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, I mean,
now we're all shutting
I
down.
know
We're all like,
because
"Fuck this."
we're also trying to infer a lot of things too, and we just need to step back too and just like ask questions like, okay, You know what I'm saying? Because then then what I notice is like the more that I try to put words in his mouth, like the more frustrated maybe he would get, just because we're assuming. So it's always
Were you getting frustrated at us?
Very,
Oh, really?
extremely.
no, he's
Really?
fucking
No, honestly,
with us.
honestly, you were getting
Honestly.
frustrated.
Why?
Honestly.
Why? Like, what were we doing?
Nothing against you guys. I was getting frustrated at you guys through myself because you guys are so like trying to dig down to, oh, what is he thinking? Like, oh, you know, and then in my mind, I'm like, it's not about me. I don't want to talk about me, you know? And then but it kept dig deeper and deeper. Meanwhile, I'm trying to respond and trying to like make it into
We were making it worse, basically.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
yeah.
And once again, I'm doing it again because it's about me, but it's not really about me. It's about the concept of jumping to conclusions, of understanding how other people are closed-minded or not.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff. Even though I'm going through similar things myself
it's like
as well.
well-meaning friends, but just like like we keep stabbing you. You're trying to grab the knife away from me. Like, and then I'm just like,
It's like, because I'm circling around this topic because I personally am going through things obviously in life, right, that kind of reflect the way I think. But at the same time, I want to talk about it in general as opposed to using myself as an example.
Yeah.
So that's why it started getting mixed together. And also, like, I'm like, stop digging. It's not about. I don't want to.
Oh, see, yeah, I didn't know. I was oblivious to that. I didn't know that was going on. Like that you were trying to get away from yourself, sort of thing.
No, it's so funny because while you guys were trying to break down and like look into my soul, I don't know if you noticed, but I was like looking at like up there because I don't want you to look at my eyes. I was like, the fuck are they doing? Because
You're avoiding eye contact.
Because I'm trying to, in my mind, I wasn't even listening to you guys.
Yeah.
I'm corralling this idea to throw it. Okay, how do I bring it to this side so I don't have to focus on this? You know what I'm saying? Part of the idea, the big idea of what our conversation was, do you accept who you are, or are you, or, you know, to fate and destiny? You know, are you a slave to destiny?
And had you just stopped there and said that's what we're talking about,
I know.
I would have been clear. Okay,
no judgment. No judgment.
No, yeah, no
I
judgment.
know. And then it just went to a shit show, right? I know. But that's the.
But what I was saying in the beginning of the show, like, was like my mind, my logic, and I tell myself in my rational state that you can't think like that. But I was also acknowledging with Howie that I think like that all the time, and I have to fight that negativity. Like, oh, this is just who you are. You're always going to be like that negative narrative. You're always going to be a loser. You always had these problems. Because when I really reflect, because I've gotten really deep in that hole all the time. But then, people around you are like, dude, you're fucking full of shit. Right? You're not like that. You're way too self-critical. And so when they say that enough, at some point you're like, okay, maybe this is the one case where I am being too self-critical. And then 2, there are things that I never thought I could do that I can do, but it doesn't keep me from thinking I'm a loser. And I think even if you look at the most successful people in the world, they're not immune. Your level of success has nothing to do with what your internal narrative is. And in fact, some of the most successful people in the world, they talk about this, is that they feel like the biggest imposters.
And I think there is a huge level of appreciation also we need to have, I think, when having some sort of conversation like this, because put it the other way, we all have different stresses in life. I know, we're all dealing with different struggles in our life. Who isn't? But look at the lives we live. In the world, if you were to rate things, we live a very privileged life. So think about this in the sense of, oh, if I never change, I will always be this. Well, what is this? This is a pretty awesome you, like objectively speaking. Now, let's put it into like the lost aversion framework in terms of let's take everything away, right? Or let's say something really catastrophic, really bad, really tragic happens. What you wouldn't fucking give just to be stuck in your current you right now for the rest of your life. Right? It's a gift for us, right? Not everyone has a gift like this, but for us, it's a gift, and we should absolutely treasure it. Yes, should we always strive to do better things and be better? Of course, that goes without saying. But this idea of like, well, if I'm just the same as I am now for the rest of my life, then I'm such a fucking loser. Like that's just objectively not true.
Like I was thinking that these exact same thoughts recently, and it's sort of like a paradox where on one hand, and it's not settling either, because I think there's a frame that you could put on it. It's like, I'm just settling for what I have. It's in relation to, I'm just going to give up because what I have, like, I'm going to settle. No, you actually have to believe that what you have is amazing, right? You have to take that comparison point completely out, because where you are on the mountain, it's all relative, right? And there's always going to be people ahead of you and behind you. And I keep reminding myself, like, because I was just thinking about, like, my dad, right? I mean, and, he's not as good as he used to be, but I just think, like, he's alive and all this stuff. And I mean, I have to think a certain way. It's because, he's old, right? And I was talking to him today, and I just talk to my mom, because, his mental level of function and all that stuff, right? It's like he's fighting, right? But I just try to remind myself, like, I can see him, I can talk to him, he can respond, like, he can say he loves me. Like, that's a lot to me. I can't expect that how he was when he was like 40 years old, right? And he was doing all this stuff. And like, I very much like amen to what you said. Like, it's the counterfactual gratitude thing, man. Because, like, when you get sick, or if anything happened to, like, we're a blink of an eye from tragedy. Tragedy is the human condition. We will all die, right? People all around you will die, and none of us will survive. And I think about this shit every fucking day, every single day, because it's so close. There are certain people in your life that are old enough that it is imminent, right? And that scares the shit out of me. And then I ask myself, should I even give a fuck then? Should I even push hard and fight for things and stuff like that? And, once you get into that mode during the day, Monday through Friday, you're just climbing the mountain, So, yeah, we have to just, like, step back and appreciate. And it's such a cliche, but seriously, like, life is just, you're a blink of an eye from not being around.
Yeah.
I mean, at least, like, I feel that, like, honestly, authentically, I feel that. And I'm not trying to preach it
100%.
but it's just like, I live that every single day. I think about it. It's on my mind a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it also goes into a little bit like what motivates us, and it's different. So I can't assume like how my framework would benefit you the way I think it might benefit me. But for me, it's like whenever take for example, I'm like trying to like excel at something. If I think I'm already like pretty good at it, my motivation to get even better at it grows. And so maybe some people it decreases. Maybe some people, they need the motivation to tell them they suck at something for them to be motivated to get really, really good at it. Some people work that way, okay? My motivation is opposite. If I feel like I already suck at something, I'm like, I already suck at it. I'm not that motivated because I'm already, But if I feel like I've already done that work and I'm good, but I just want to get better, like that motivation for me is strong. Like those incremental improvements are really strong. So I think that's a good framework in terms of like looking at your life. Hey, I'm not immune to these thoughts of thinking I'm a loser, and I've expressed these to you, and we've expressed these to each other all the time. But like the way I look at it now is like, hey, worst comes to worst, status quo me, I'm okay. And that motivates me just even that much more to get even better because I feel like I've already come far. So if I feel like I'm a loser right now, I'll just throw my hands up.
So where does self-awareness come in then? To how much of self-awareness does that impact one's decisions then? Because that's one of the things it's quite subjective. Even the concept of self-awareness I know you were focusing on the objective side, but I don't know, I think the subjective side is much more interesting to me to think about, because one thing that I feel like we've talked about this in the pod before, but the idea of that there's a lot of people out there that just have no idea how bad they are, but they still do something, or vice versa. They are so good at what they do, but they have no idea how good they are. Mm-hmm. They think they're bad, right? So
it's like body dysmorphia. Like you just don't know.
It works
but
both ways.
Let me ask you this: like, do you feel that you're a fairly self-aware person, like
Yeah.
balanced.
Yeah.
So good. So then you move on.
Yeah.
Like because if it's not a limiting factor, then
But-
you just move on to the next step.
But what I'm saying is that because I always held this idea that I'm very self-aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you get to a point where you think that you were like on the positive side of the self-awareness, but you were wrong?
Okay, let me go back.
Well, is
but
that-
what are you
so-
worried about though?
Yeah.
But
Like,
what,
why do you
what's
care
your
about that?
Yeah, well, like what
Just
are you
curious.
worried
It's
about?
just- it's not about me again. It's just curious. I'm
Okay.
just talking about self-awareness.
Well, I mean, a good way to kind of calibrate that would just be get people who know you, who are close to you, and get their opinions on you. Like that mirror that we always talk about. Like we have the worst seat in the house, right?
Well, there's something I've been thinking about recently, which is just like to avoid like the patterns, and whether it's like you're overly self-critical or you're overly confident. And so like I do think about that sometimes, which is like just think about like, are there patterns that come up over and over and over? Just be a little bit more aware and present. So when you're talking to people and you're listening, right? Listen a little bit more, and just are there certain patterns that come up? Like for instance, like, okay, am I being overly self-critical? You know? And then it does bother me when I do the same things over and over and over, because you don't want to, I don't know, it bothers me when, let's say there's something that I unconsciously am doing over and over and over, and everyone knows, you know, then my self-criticalness like works overtime.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But we all have that.
Yeah.
We all do that. We all do things that we're kind of have blind spots to that other people notice. Like all of us. Like we
Yeah.
all have traits like
Right.
that. And I don't think any of these things are necessarily hold you back or help you. I think it depends, right? Like I think being blindly confident in your abilities, like that can be a superpower for some people, because then they just do things, and then, you know, some of them succeed just because they dared to do it. And then, you know, some people who are like so like critical of themselves, they get paralyzed and they never do anything. But it can work vice versa too, right? You know, if you're blindly confident, it can hurt you and get you into bad situations, right? And so there's this huge piece of life that we haven't actually talked about, that most of the older successful people that have ever talked to me that I respect have all mentioned universally in their lives, which is luck. Like there's been so like that's such an understated part of life. It's just pure fucking luck, man. Like you can do all the right things and still not succeed.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then you can do a bunch of wrong things and succeed.
Yeah. All the things that you do, that you train yourself on or you practice on, you improve on, it's just upping the chances of luck. That's all it is.
All those books out there, it's like also like a selection bias. It's because like you have to have done all the work, and then you had the luck, and then they write the book. And so I think that's a bias, right? We're overconfident that what we did actually was the reason for the outcome.
Yeah.
Both positive and negative. So like for the people that fail, then they tend to point the finger on themselves, and for the people that succeed, like, here's my formula.
Yeah.
But the reality is that there's a correlation, but it's not totally causal.
Yeah, and I think it ties into the human need to feel like we're in control, to feel like there is this playbook of life. So if we do these steps, we will be guaranteed a certain outcome because of it, because that's comforting to know. That's super comforting to know that there is some sort of rhyme and reason to this life, and our input will directly result in some sort of output. But the scary part of life, and in my opinion, the reality of life is that's not like that's true to an extent, but then there's this whole like part of life that you can't calculate for.
No guarantees.
No
man.
guarantees.
It's fucking
And
no
that's like maybe
guarantees.
50% of life, right? So 50% is maybe what you can control, 50% is what you can't. And you just have to deal with it. And, hopefully you have some luck in your life, right? And so
It's fucking scary, though.
It's
When
scary.
you think about it. Like getting sick.
I wouldn't even say 50%.
Yeah. Like
more.
yeah, it's
More
like,
out of your control.
It's like 5% in your control.
Yeah. The only thing you can control is your thoughts.
True. I didn't want to paint.
That's a
I don't
good-
want to
that's-
paint such a
that's
gloomy
so
picture,
true.
Right? What else can you control?
Yeah. But having said that, your thoughts is usually the ones that fucks you up.
You know what's interesting is like sometimes we get into great conversation and we're just bouncing off each other, but then sometimes it becomes these. Now, I wouldn't say preachy, but it's almost like we're trying to like give these like one take advices, just one after another.
We're trying to solve for things.
just
We're trying to
noticed
solve
that.
for things, and at the same time, we're trying to convince ourselves of what we're saying.
I noticed
as well.
that. It's interesting.
Because at the end of the, well, I mean, not all conversations we have, but particularly this one, a lot of it is self-therapy, right? Like the whole entire conversation we have today is really trying to tell ourselves certain things, convince ourselves of certain things. So yeah, like
It's like we're coming to that conclusion because we hope that for us,
we're talking
ourselves-
to ourselves,
yeah,
right?
to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, if we say it enough, it'll come true.
Well, let's call it there. This was a really good one, but rocky one.
It was rocky.
I think it's good. Occasionally, from time to time.
All right, guys, that's it for today. I'm Justin.
I'm a shit show.
I'm sometimes a shit show.
We're all shit shows. All right, this is 3 Shit Shows signing off. Be good. Be well. Peace.
Got that right.